Works Commissioner and keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Soucheray.
What's her name?
Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg will testify before Congress today.
No.
Mm-hmm. Will she be flown in, Geordie wonders, or will she arrive by balloon, rickshaw? Does that mean that she has to be here under a 14-day quarantine? These are pretty serious, interesting questions. There is nothing this possibly disturbed young woman can contribute to the health of the earth, because she's got a bit of a distorted view of her life. She thinks her childhood was taken from her. No one apparently has shown her any pictures of 3-year-olds drowning in the ocean trying to get away from Libya and into Europe. I find her a very troubled soul, and I pay no attention to her. But it's interesting to note that apparently she's in our country.
I think I know how she's going to get here, Joe.
Yeah.
If you offset your carbon, it's the only choice for somebody
right.
like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. I negotiated the Paris Accords for the United States. I've been involved in this fight for years. I negotiated with President Xi to bring President Xi to the table so we could get Paris. And I believe the time it takes me to get somewhere, I can't sail across the ocean. I have to fly to meet with people and get things done.
Gotta get
but what
it done.
I'm doing almost full time is working to win the battle of climate change. And in the end, if I offset and contribute my life to do this, I'm not going to be put on the defensive.
Carrie, you're going to meet Xi wearing one of your $2,500 suits, and by the time he's done with you, you won't even be dressed in a barrel. So who are you kidding? Let's stick with that.
Yeah.
President Joe Biden will pledge to cut U.S. greenhouse gas emissions at least in half now, by 2030. In fact, Reavers, I didn't mean to spring this on you. I should have mentioned this to you 30 minutes ago, but there is audio today that we need to put in our end of the world file, in which Joe Biden is saying, this is the decade. We either have to do it now,
Or we're done.
or it's over.
We're toast.
It's over.
Okay.
You might be able to find that while I read here.
I'm going to look right now.
All right. In half by 2030, as he convenes a virtual climate summit with 40 world leaders, according to 3 people with knowledge of the White House plans. The 50% target would nearly double America's previous commitment and help the Biden administration prod other countries for ambitious emissions cuts as well. The proposal would require dramatic changes in the power and transportation sectors. Let me stop there and mention to the GLers what I mentioned to you guys before the show. The only thing to grasp here as a reality and as possibly a ray of hope is that none of this will happen. None of this can possibly happen. But which does not displease me, because I don't think any of it needs to happen.
But the fact of the matter is they're going to spend money to make this not happen. This is going to cost us.
That's right. Would require dramatic changes in the power and transportation sectors, including significant increases in renewable energy such as wind and solar, and steep cuts in emissions from fossil fuels such as coal and oil. The non-binding, see, there's another clue for you.
Yeah.
The non-binding but symbolically important pledge is a key element of the 2-day summit, which begins today, when world leaders gather online. Maybe that's where Greta will appear online.
She already did, actually.
She did,
She testified this morning virtually.
Was she
And
quivering? Was she quivering and shaking her little fist?
She was in a way in that she told them, I'm not optimistic that you'll do what you should. So she was lecturing them again.
You can't. Why don't we just discuss it from truth and reality? You can't. You can't ask 330 million Americans to share the burden of this insanity when China's not going to do it, when India's not going to do it, when Indonesia's not going to do it, when Russia's not going to do it, and you're going to ask, Jim Jones, Joe Johnson, who's got 4 kids, and his wife's a medical tech in Topeka, and he runs a surveying crew, and they have 2 cars, and their kids are in school, and their kids are in the Little League, and they like to go out for a burger once a week. You're going to ask them to completely upset their lives. You don't even know how you're going to do that yet, but that's what you're going to ask them, and me, and Reavers, and Height, and Kenny. That's what you're going to ask us. And all you're asking me to do is to embrace your insanity, because you've run out of all ways to expand government. This is the last breath of Marxism. It's the last one. There's nothing after this. That's a good question. Where will the government turn after this to enforce their will? What would be left? What would be left to enforce their will? You've tried everything under the sun. What would be left?
Communism, socialism, forcing us to do it. By the way, China says they're on board with a few changes. They want to allow their carbon emissions to peak before 2030, and they think they can maybe reach carbon neutrality. Neutrality. Thank you, by 2060, as opposed to our goal of 2050.
Would you like to hear from the president?
Yes. Are we running out of time, Chris?
Road to cut greenhouse gases in half by the end of this decade. That's where we're headed as a nation. And that's what we can do if we take action to build an economy that's not only more prosperous, but healthier, fair, and cleaner for the entire planet. These steps will set America on a path of net zero emissions economy by no later than 2050. But the truth is, America represents less than 15% of the world's emissions. No nation can solve this crisis on our own, as I know you all fully understand. All of us, and particularly those of us who represent the world's largest economies, we have to step up. Those that do take action and make bold investments in their people and clean energy future will win the good jobs of tomorrow and make their economies more resilient and more competitive. So let's run that race. Win more sustainable future than we have now. Overcome the existential crisis of our time.
God almighty.
We know just how critically important that is.
Critical.
Because scientists tell us
this is it.
That this is the decisive decade.
This is it.
This is the decade we must make decisions that will avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis.
That's insanity. I am convinced that's insanity. That is born of a desperation to lock the government in to a superiority that it has never experienced before. And I think I stumbled onto a wonderful question. Where in the hell do they go when this fails? What do they attempt to manipulate if this fails? Because this can't work. Would you please look up the word, John, inertia?
Inertia, sure.
Please look up the word inertia. I'm not sure I have it correctly.
By the way, did China agree to, is China at the table today? Because the last piece I read, they had not decided whether or not they were going to show up. And their participation in all of this to, as I said earlier, to reach these goals by 2060 depends on the rest of us, all these other countries, ignoring the political crackdowns in Hong Kong and threats towards Taiwan and all these other humanitarian issues. We have to ignore all the other bad stuff that China is doing in order to get them to the table. And so I'm wondering if they even showed up today.
Gentlemen,
Yeah.
I stumbled upon something that might even be worse than what the president just said.
Then I'll come back to my word inertia.
I'm sorry. I
No,
didn't
go
hear you
ahead.
ask John a
Go
question.
ahead.
Our buddy John Kerry was at it again today.
Oh.
And, well, I'll just play this for you. He wants to get all of the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Oh, okay.
It's such a great quick start. You said twice getting to net zero is going to be hard. really hard. And just remind everybody that will depend on whether or not we have some breakthrough technologies and breakthrough innovations, number one. But even if we get to net zero, we still have to get carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So this is a bigger challenge than a lot of people have sort of really grabbed onto yet.
Well, John, the reason people really haven't really grabbed onto that yet is that carbon dioxide, since God invented this twirling ball, has been an important chemical component of life on Earth. And I'm not sure, John, I could be wrong. I'm not sure the Earth has ever been without carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Can humans survive without
Zero carbon dioxide.
carbon dioxide?
Carbon dioxide is not in and of itself evil.
Okay. CO2 is not poisonous.
That's
Okay,
right.
we got that going for us.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
CO2 itself will never hurt you. This is an important fact to remember, as carbon dioxide is a vital part of the environment.
Thank you.
The human breathing mechanism actually revolves around CO2, not oxygen. Without carbon dioxide, humans wouldn't be able to breathe.
You know what, though?
This
the
is-
Syrians don't give a bleep because they don't like people.
It's okay because I'll be in my Nissan Leaf and
I'll still have my Ducati motorcycle and my really gray shingled sided shed on Nantucket. And I'm going to be fine. I don't care about the rest of you peons. I got a Superman suit I wear because I travel the world, going to bring you some safety.
Does he even realize what
How
he's
could
saying?
this guy be that stupid? Seriously, how can you be that stupid?
I got to save this one. That's a doozy.
Groin kick him for that.
Oh,
today.
well, I didn't know you were going to get me a groin.
Well, what the hell? That is
By the way,
most-
while we're waiting for it, I found the answer to my question. China is at the climate summit today.
Zoom? Are they zooming?
Yep, they're zooming in. I wonder if the leaders are wearing pants or if they're just dressed from the top up.
Like the rest
Yeah,
of us when we have a sales Zoom meeting?
Yeah,
They got those bad, ill-fitting commie suits. They don't fit well in the neck and shoulder.
Mr. Carey, this is for you. This is for you right here. Come on here. Why is my button not working? That is just
Yeah,
fantastic.
because we just have a little equipment problem occasionally, don't
You know,
we?
that's going to
That
happen.
deserves this.
There we go.
we're at that age where we have those issues.
There we go. I'm giving him another one.
The U.S. emissions target has been eagerly awaited by all sides of the climate debate. It will signal how aggressively Biden wants to move. Let me stop because I have a really important thing to say about the word inertia. What does it mean, John?
Inertia, number one, a tendency to do nothing or to remain unchanged. Number two, relating to physics, a property of matter by which it continues in an existing state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless changed by an external force.
Okay. To change our life, you would have to externally disrupt the inertia of human beings. By which I mean this. Do you ever look at a golf tournament, Johnny, and you wonder about
I like how you start rocking when you go into these modes.
Have you ever seen aerial coverage of the Finger Lakes area of New York, or up into the Thousand Islands area of New York, between New York and Canada? Have you ever seen aerial footage of a gorgeous summer day on the Chesapeake or up and
Yeah.
down the Atlantic seaboard?
I've
Or
been there.
have you ever seen a golf tournament where the course is close enough to the ocean that just literally thousands of boats are at anchor, pretending they can see a golfer make a putt or whatever? And when I look at those scenes, the word inertia comes to mind. And how are you going to cease that? How are you going to wipe that activity off the face of the earth? It's consumption of fossil fuels, it's consumerism, it's most principally the consumption of fossil fuels. And in order to bring about the insanity that is being wished for here. You have to wave a magic wand and disrupt that so that those scenes no longer exist. Let's bring it closer to home. We always used to get wonderful footage of what's the days they had in Stillwater that they
Lumberjack.
They got Lumberjack because they were too successful. But back in the heyday of Lumberjack days in Stillwater, Channel 5 would send the bird up, and you'd get these marvelous summer shots of the thousands of boats and the people on land and the sun and the wonderful ambiance and the festivity. And I always thought to myself, okay, what the insane people want cannot possibly include that. It can't.
Joe, you've just described every summer in Wisconsin and Minnesota between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Yes.
Vehicles on the freeway pulling pontoons, towboats, fishing boats, water scooters, and then all of that activity out on all of these lakes and rivers around the Midwest.
California, Florida,
Yeah.
the Virginias, the Carolinas, up and down the eastern seaboard, the state of Washington, on Canada, the Muskoka Lakes, everywhere you want to talk about. Now I know it might seem silly that I'm talking about boating. I guess you could just substitute the boating for the endless film footage we've seen all our lives of crowded freeways. What are you going to do to end that life? What are you going to do?
Electricity. Batteries.
That's not going
The
to.
sun. The wind.
It's not going to happen enough to bring about this insanity. And the insanity that's being brought about is a complete rejection of the lifestyle which brought us to this point, which brought us to this marvelous point in life. A lifestyle that has enriched more people, that has expanded life expectancy, that has resulted in more prosperity, that has resulted in more leisure. It's been a beautiful, beautiful life we have, beautiful life. And now you're telling me that if we don't end that in this decade, if we don't end that or cut it in half, we will face dire consequences, none of which they can articulate, except their vague claims all the time of rising oceans, which has never stopped a billionaire from building an oceanside retreat, including Obama.
Look what happened
Gates.
during the last year, during the pandemic. What happened? Pontoon sales went up, boat sales went up, motorcycle sales went up, sports car sales went up.
E-bikes.
People took to the road, to traveling, to spending time with family out on the lake. Fish house sales went out. Everything went up. And what they're proposing is just going to put a bigger chasm between all of us. It's dividing all of us is what it's going to do. They're going to try to kill all of those industries.
May I read something that Greta said this morning? We always talk about the arrogance of this movement.
Yes, please.
The arrogance of the movement, John, or of this young woman?
Well, for sure, this young woman, but I think the movement perhaps too. Here's what she told the House Oversight Committee. I don't believe for a second that you will actually do this. You still have time to do the right thing and to save your legacies, but that window of time is not going to last for long. We, the young people, are the ones who are going to write about you in the history books, so my advice for you, choose wisely. I can't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, how could that even be true, Greta? You, based on your dire, sour outlook on life in general, you won't be around to write about this in history books.
There'll be no history books we won't be
because the
there.
earth is going to burn up, Greta.
Yeah.
You miserable, rotten fool.
Careful, she's a youngin'.
I'm sorry, she's a miserable, rotten youngin'.
Bad parents.
Well, she's got the theatrical parents.
Parents are afraid to tell their kid to shut the hell up.
She is up to 18 years old now.
On the other side of the ocean.
Is that her?
Yet You all come to us young people.
I got to find a better clip because that one's
I
way.
can't listen to this.
You guys, that's way too low.
I can't listen.
But
to
Joe,
it
it's
anymore.
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
But my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. Yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying.
Where?
Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Where?
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
Where?
All you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
You know, honestly,
Is this Shakespeare? What play is she reading from?
honestly,
what an
though,
actor!
I'll
What
say
an
the same
actor.
thing I did when she burst onto the scene. I actually feel bad for her because she's completely being used and she's being manipulated and she actually believes this stuff and she might have a few things off, if you know what I'm saying.
You mean like screws loose in her head?
I really think so. I do.
Yeah.
And I think she's being used by the wrong people. And it's sad to see that.
I can't abide the celebrity class which unfortunately now has to include her, because news gathering institutions have her now as part of their template. I can't abide by them ignoring the true suffering of children. And what they do is they substitute or ignore the true suffering of people in the world and replace it with what their idea of suffering is. And their idea of suffering is completely dreamed up out of whole cloth and has nothing to do with an 8-week-old in Sudan who can't get enough food, an 8-week-old in Yemen whose father can't leave the little child's side because he'll get shot going to try to get the kid some food. These frauds have no idea what suffering is, especially that fraud.
The kids being dropped over the wall every night on the Mexican United States
You guys,
border.
I saw it happen a couple weeks ago. It was
that is true suffering.
yes.
Wow.
I don't know how we push back except to understand that the insanity they wish to bring about most probably cannot be brought about, which I'm going to embrace as some positivity. It cannot happen. You cannot, even 10 years is nothing. In 10 years, you are going to do what? You are going to upend. Let's just keep it to America because the rest of the world would just soon have us shoulder this burden. They don't want anything to do with it.
No, we are going to shoulder it. It is our burden. We must be the leader. Go ahead.
You can't do it. You can't bring about the changes you want without totally ruining the source of the money you keep taking from us to parlay your schemes. You can't do it. There won't be any coffers to go to dream up your next BS. And I am fascinated by wondering, what is the next BS? When this fails, where do they go?
You know,
Because these are not good people. These are not good people.
You know, speaking of that, Kenny, we really have dropped the ball on starting up our carbon credit industry. We really got to get that going.
You know what? I don't have that kind of evil in me. I really don't. I would rather remain poor and live from paycheck to paycheck as a country bleeping bumpkin than do any kind of that, because that's big. That's James Bond evil to me.
Yeah.
That's evil villain bleep.
That's
is
an
what
evildoer.
that is.
Well,
Carbon
get them while the
credits.
getting
Give
is
me a
good.
break, you lying frauds.
Get them.